Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday. I hope you're having a good day here in South Florida where I'm located. It is very hot and humid. It's been cloudy, but also stormy, and that has kind of been the case this season. But of course, you're here to talk about what's going on in the tropics, so let's get right to it. Before I start, though, I just want to remind everybody to click the like, subscribe, and notification buttons if you like what we're doing here, what I'm doing here, and that helps elevate the video, and then hopefully more folks can watch it and maybe get something out of it. Now, what I always like to do is get right to our tropical threats, hurricane preps, next 5 days, a map here. And this basically is the areas that may have to enact hurricane preparations. This doesn't include flooding rains from a tropical wave or gusty winds or sporadic power outages. This is the big preparation stuff. This is the stuff where you have to maybe put up shutters or take care of yard items or do big time preparations. And as you can see, we're already talking about our strong tropical wave, which we'll go to more in detail. But I like to always start on this graphic because I just want to get the headline news out of the way. In other words, is it coming here? And if it's not coming here and I don't want to worry about it, then I'm not going to watch the rest of the video because I don't care about the meteorology. I just want to know, as most people would say, is it going to hit me? Well, of course, with any type of tropical situation, there's a lot of uncertainty. We don't know, is it going to hit you or me, sometimes for many days when a system especially is out in the Atlantic. But let's talk about where we are watching a little bit more closely, and that is in the Lesser Antilles, including Barbados there. And I've labeled this as what we would consider a low threat condition, which means you need to watch closely, you need to pay attention. Within the next 5 days, there is a low possibility you will have to do some type of preparation more than just your average type of, oh, it's going to be a run-of-the-mill rainy, windy day kind of preparation. So that's basically all of the islands there. Now, this could expand westward in time to include the Virgin Islands, as well as Puerto Rico, maybe even parts of Hispaniola, that being Dominican Republic and Haiti. And it may even include parts of the ABC Islands, Abaco, Curacao, not Abaco, I always say Abaco, Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. Aruba, Curacao, and Bonaire. But right now, and you'll see here in just a second, it's mainly, looks like it could be a potential Caribbean threat, especially in the eastern islands there. So that's kind of the bottom line. Once again, as we go through hurricane season, and I will say this over and over and over, a hurricane situation is a marathon. It's not a sprint. We prepare throughout the season. Right now, everybody in the blue area, which includes all of the U.S. coastline, you're in your seasonal preps. What are seasonal preps? They are check your insurance, check your plan if you're in an evacuation zone, where you'll go. If you're not in an evacuation zone and you have medical needs, make sure you know what you're going to do. All of the things you want to do before there is an actual hurricane threat, and write it down too, because what happens is that when there's an actual hurricane threat, I get nervous. Everybody gets a little bit nervous. It's anxiety producing, and when your anxiety goes up, you don't make decisions quite as well. You want to always be a step ahead as we go through hurricane season, and you never want to be surprised. You never want to say, oh, wow, I didn't expect that. So we always kind of cast a bigger net on possibilities, things that could happen. And I never say it's not going to do this or it's definitely going to do this. We always have a bit of uncertainty in the language, in the messaging language. And trust me, I've been doing this for 38 years, almost 40 years, hurricanes for 26. So it's taken a while to get the messaging part down, and it's not an easy thing to get right away. I'm very careful, by the way, with the words that I choose. I never want to convey or infer a message that I think will cause people to make incorrect planning decisions. So just keep that in mind. All right, so that's basically where we stand. If you don't want to watch any more of the video, have a great Sunday. I will probably do this again on Monday. I might do this every day of the week. Now, Thursday and Friday, I'm traveling to the American Meteorological Society conference in Phoenix. So I'm a panel chair for one of the sessions. So I won't be able to haul all of my studio with me. So, but let's get through at least the next few days, and I think we're going to be fine. So let's talk about what we're watching here, and really, kind of what jumps out at you is there's kind of two swirls down here right away. There's the one that's our primary system that's right there, but look at this right behind it. This looks like the end of August or even September. So this is very unusual for this time of year. Now, both of these or neither of these may turn out to be a big deal in the whole hurricane season scheme of things. But to have two well-organized tropical waves out here, it's definitely eye-opening, because anytime you get activity here in what we call the main development region, that usually is a precursor of above normal activity when it happens in June. Now, does that mean we're going to have a lot of landfalls this year? I don't think so, at least the way it looks right now, because of El Nino and the wind shear. That El Nino is likely going to keep at least most of the season around. So thank goodness that it looks like an El Nino type of year. Let's look at that second system first that's coming off. There it is, and you can see lots of thunderstorms. Now, typically when they come off of Africa, you do have that thunderstorm activity, and then they typically kind of fall apart and then have to get reorganized again. And typically we have cooler water kind of in this area, especially this time of year, but it's pretty warm and warm enough to support tropical storm, a tropical cyclone as we'd call it, which means, remember, tropical cyclone is depression, storm, or hurricane. So it's just kind of a big word that encompasses all of them, but it would support tropical cyclone development, the water temperatures. Here's our lead system there, and you can easily make out the overall swirl in the system, kind of a concentration now of thunderstorms there. This line right here, that's latitude 10 degrees north, and so it's kind of just barreling along there at 10 degrees north, moving to the west at around 15 to 20 miles an hour. Also, systems this part of the Atlantic, they move rather quickly as they go. So and that sometimes limits the development. So this one not being an exception to the rule. It's moving along rather quickly as well. Let's look at the water vapor loop, because this kind of tells a lot of the internals. The water vapor loop, a lot of times besides showing atmospheric moisture, also shows the finer details in atmospheric flow. You can see that up here to the north, there's a lot of dry air. It does not have that look like it's coming to the south. That's not happening. So at least in the interim, and at least at this level, it doesn't look like there's a lot of dry air. Both of these systems, the one behind it and the lead system here, they both have kind of a roundish appearance. And typically we see a roundish appearance when the upper level outflow, at least in the upper levels, is fairly well established. So also an indication of not much shear out there. And then finally, what was the other thing I was going to say here? Well, basically that's kind of it from the water vapor loop. We can also see where there is some wind shear, and there's a little bit maybe up over in here. There's obviously some wind shear up here where these elements are moving a little more quickly there into northwest Africa. But basically from the water vapor loop, we have two healthy disturbances, tropical waves that are moving on off to the west. So let's look at the models here. And at this point, we don't have what we call a model tracker. Basically, when we label, or when the Hurricane Center labels a storm, and this is what we call Invest 92, then we get the model trackers to run, and the model trackers are in the computer models. We track where that center of circulation is forecast to be. These model trackers don't tell us about the intensity. They just tell us where that center is going to be. And we don't have a model tracker for the Euro model, but what I've done is I put on here kind of this outline there. That's where the Euro's forecast center is. And as we go through time here, and I'll advance it, we'll go through the next 5 days. You can see all of the tracks are to the west. The Euro is a little bit faster. Some of the other models are a little more to the right, but there's been a noticeable shift or trend to the south and to the west, with less turning out into the open Atlantic. So let's go ahead and go forward into time here. And you can see the time up there in the upper left-hand corner. And you can see the UK, that's the United Kingdom model. It's in pretty good agreement with the Euro there. So let's kind of break them down here. And a lot of people are always like, well, what model does the best? Well, unfortunately, because they kind of tweak the models every year, we kind of have to learn as we go with the models which model is doing the best, and hopefully that it continues to do the best, because then we can have more confidence and put more reliance in it. The GFS looks like it's had more of a rightward bias here. In this case, this would be what we call poleward or northward bias. So it looks like it is trending a little bit more to the left or to the west there. So we're going to we'll keep an eye on it. And remember, we don't discount completely any model. We take them all into consideration. We might put more weight on some models over other models, but we don't just go throw it out. Unless, of course, it's crazy and goes off and does its own crazy thing, and then we throw it out. A couple of things that are more reliable models, this TVCN here, or TVCI if it's interpolated. This is a blend of several models here, and it tends to outperform any one model by itself. Also, this CTCX, this is a Navy model here. This model did very, very well last year. This is one of the models that I'm going to keep an eye on, and I'm going to give more weight to than some of these other models here. The H-Wharf here, this is a model that's probably, and the H-Mon here, these two models are likely going to be set aside for what's called the HAFS model, which is a new model that's going to be operational this year. And I think it starts at the end of the first of next month. So these two models will likely be set aside. These models typically do better with intensity when they get the track right, and also when we have a developed system. So we still don't have technically a developed system. It's developing, but it's not developed. And also all of our models do better. Research has shown when the hurricane hunters are investigating and when they fly what is called big patterns. In other words, it's important that they go through the center of the storm, or if it's a hurricane, maybe the eye of the storm. But what the models seem to do better with is when the hurricane hunters sample a larger width of the storm, or breadth of the storm, or area of the storm. So a larger sample from the hurricane hunter aircraft really helps the models the most. That's some of the research that came out recently. This clipper here, that's a climatology model, so that's just that's based on previous storm behavior. And this circle here, that's where the Euro is. So the Euro is faster. The Euro, remember, isn't great or as great with intensity. We don't use it as much as an intensity model, but some of the statistical intensity predictions here are showing that this could strengthen into at least a strong tropical storm. So that's certainly a consideration that we're also keeping in the back of our mind. But even the statistical models don't do quite as well with what we call the INVEST here, the pre-tropical depression stage. So this is through Thursday at 1 p.m. And so this is where, if it maintains this kind of west-northwest track toward the Caribbean here, the Eastern Caribbean, this is kind of the time frame here, Thursday. We need to start thinking about if it's going to come into the islands here as either a very strong tropical wave or maybe a tropical storm, or, and we can't rule out the possibility of a hurricane. This is the time frame that we want to have things wrapped up. So we would say, based on what we know right now, Sunday evening, Thursday at sunset, I think we would want to have things wrapped up. Okay, so your planning day here would be Wednesday if we're going to do planning. Now remember, I showed that first graphic at the beginning, and that first graphic had green in this area. Tomorrow it might go to orange, a moderate chance that we need to, moderate threat that we need to start thinking more seriously about preps in the islands. Of course, the islands, the preps in some ways, because there aren't what we think of when we think of the U.S. mainland, large-scale evacuations. These are preps, of course, from your homes and getting away from the nearby waters, the coast and stuff along the islands there. So this is 1 p.m. on Thursday. Let's move it forward here and go on into Friday. And you can see the Euro very fast here. In fact, it's one of the fastest models here. And at this point, even though the Euro is not a good intensity model, it does tend to weaken whatever system it is out here. And when I say not a good intensity model, it's good with the trends. It's just not good like saying it's going to be Category 2 or it's going to be tropical storm or stuff like that. So it's good with the trends, but it's not great at the exact intensity. You can see the GFS over here slower, the HMON slower here, and here's our CTCX. So basically, I would say from almost the windwards here, potentially Barbados, on up through the Lesser Antilles, all you folks need to watch this and watch it closely. And of course, if there's not as much northward progress here, north of 10, then of course Trinidad and Tobago need to watch out TNT there, as well as potentially the northern Venezuelan coast. But I think the folks here in the Lesser Antilles pay attention a little more closely, as well as Puerto Rico and Virgin Islands, and as well as southern coast of Dominican Republic and Haiti there. So that's 5 p.m. on Friday. Let's put the GFS ensemble. Now here's the GFS. That's what we call the operational run. And that's kind of a different version of the model from what's called the ensemble, which are what we like to think of as all the possibilities. And you can see the spread here. And one of the things that this kind of spread tells us, you can see it's like this, is that the runs that are over here are slower. The runs that are down here, the solutions down there, are faster. These solutions down here in the bottom, these are also weaker solutions. So these are stronger up here, stronger kind of more towards the ocean, and that would make sense because a stronger system would more likely sense a dip in the jet stream up here and try to go up there. The weaker would just sense the steering currents of the high pressure, basically the Bermuda high or the Atlantic high that steers things along. So one of the things we're going to be watching here as it gets into the Caribbean is what about wind shear, hostile wind shear? Remember, wind shear is disruptive to tropical systems. Not only does it make it difficult for the tropical system to keep thunderstorms near the center, convection near the center, which would help strengthen it, but it also has the ability to introduce dry air. So I'm going to overlay the models here, and we're going to go forward into time, and you can see that as we go forward into time, it's basically in a low shear environment here. And then as we just get into the islands there, still kind of a low shear environment, but then after that, it looks like it's going to be approaching this area of higher wind shear here in the Caribbean. This feature here, this upper level high, it's retreating. So it's slowly going west. And so that wind shear that's with it is also slowly going west. But it may be fast enough that the shear doesn't catch our little system here until it gets into the islands. So certainly something we're thinking about. Basically for the mainland, where do we stand? We always like to talk about what should we be doing now. If you're in the U.S., in a coastal location that could see hurricanes during the hurricane season, do your seasonal preps. Are you doing anything extra? Not at this point. Are we looking at a hurricane situation for the United States? Not at this point. Remember, it'd be great if we could say 10 days away we're going to get a hurricane here. And in rare instances, we can say that. In 2017 with Irma, it looked like Florida was going to get a hurricane a week away. This one does not look like an Irma. It does not look like a Maria. It's an early season tropical system that will eventually run into some wind shear and some hostile conditions. For the moment, it has a window of opportunity. So right now, once again, we can't say zero, but the U.S. mainland threat is very, very low. The Caribbean threat is low, but it's elevated in the Eastern Caribbean there. Now, we talk about this preparation cone because you always have to kind of think ahead of the curve. You know, not so much what am I doing now? It's like what Wayne Gretzky used to say. I don't look at the puck. I look at where the puck is going. We're kind of in that way. We look at where the puck is going in terms of hurricanes. And right now, the U.S., and this is specifically, of course, for Florida, where I am, but the Gulf, the East Coast of the U.S., all of the U.S., we are keeping an eye on it. It's at least 7 days away, and that's all we're doing, keeping an eye on it. If in 5 days it starts looking a little bit better organized, then we start thinking about the possibility of having to deal with it. But right now we're at 7 days, and once again, I really don't think that we are going to be dealing with anything here in the U.S. Not saying it's not going to happen. I'm just saying I don't think we're going to have to. So that's basically it. Let's see. That's about 18 minutes worth of content there, right? So I'll probably do one of these again tomorrow. I hate to really drag them out and make them too long and, beat up something that's not going to be a significant event. If this was going to be a significant event for anybody in its path, I would definitely spend more time with it. But you know what? We deal with these things. Once again, it's not a sprint. It's a marathon. If you like this video, give it a like, subscribe, and get the notifications. And in the meantime, we will plan on doing another one of these Monday afternoon, probably around 5 o'clock. Okay, we'll see you then.